You might be thinking right now that attraction is something you either have or you don't, that it belongs to the young, the loud, the people who walk into a room and somehow own it without trying. And if that's true, then you've already lost, because you can't go back and be 25 again. But sit with this for a moment. Think about the people you've actually been drawn to in your life. Not the loudest ones, not the ones who tried the hardest, the ones who made you feel calm just by being near them, the ones who listened like your words mattered, the ones who seemed comfortable in their own skin, even when the room wasn't comfortable at all. None of that came from youth. None of that came from a haircut or a new jacket. It came from something quieter, something built over years, sometimes without the person even realizing they were building it. The Stoics understood this better than almost anyone. Epictetus once said that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those things. And in the same way, it is not your appearance, your bank account, or your social status that determines how attractive you are to others. It is how you carry your inner state into the world. People feel that. They sense it before a single word is spoken. Today we are going to talk about 10 small habits, not transformations, not makeovers, tiny, almost invisible adjustments to how you move through your days. And what's strange is that most of these habits cost nothing, take no time, and yet they change how people experience you in ways you might not expect. Let's start with the first one, and it's something most people get backwards. Habit number 1 is slowing down your speech. Think about the last time you were nervous, or trying to impress someone, or rushing through a story because you were afraid the other person might lose interest. Your words probably came out faster. Maybe you talked over them a little. Maybe you filled every silence because silence felt unbearable. Now think about someone you know who speaks slowly, who pauses before answering, who doesn't seem to feel the need to fill every gap in conversation. There is something magnetic about that kind of presence, isn't there? It signals that the person is not afraid of the moment. They are not performing, they are simply there. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, the one he never intended anyone else to read, that a man's worth is measured by the worth of what he values. If you value being heard over being right, if you value connection over performance, your speech naturally slows down. You stop rushing to prove something and start actually communicating. Here's a real example. Think of a man at a family gathering, maybe 60 years old, who used to be the one talking the most, telling the longest stories, trying to keep everyone entertained. Over the years, somewhere along the way, he started talking less and listening more. And what happened? People started seeking him out. Not because he became more interesting in the traditional sense, but because being around him felt different, easier. People felt like they had room to exist without being overshadowed. That is attraction. Not the kind from movies, the kind that makes people want to stay in the room with you. Habit number 2 is making real eye contact, the kind that doesn't dart away after a second. Most people, especially as they get older, have learned to glance and look away quickly, almost as if holding someone's gaze too long is rude or uncomfortable. But think about what it communicates when someone looks at you steadily, without anxiety, while you're speaking. It tells you that you have their full attention, that nothing else in that moment matters more than this conversation. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius that we should treat our time as the most valuable thing we possess, because once it's spent, it never returns. When you give someone your full visual attention, you are essentially saying, in a language older than words, that your time and presence belong to them right now. People feel valued by that, even if they couldn't explain why. Picture a woman in her 50s at a dinner party. the kind of gathering where everyone is half distracted, checking phones, glancing around the room. She sits across from someone and simply looks at them while they talk. Doesn't interrupt, doesn't glance at her phone, just listens, eyes steady, present. People remember her afterward, even if she barely said a word herself. That presence becomes rare, and rare things become valuable. Habit number 3 is letting go of the need to be right. This one is harder than it sounds, because most of us were raised in environments where being right meant being respected, and being wrong meant losing status. But think about the people in your life who always need to have the last word, who can't let a small disagreement go, who turn every conversation into a debate they must win. Now think about someone who can simply say, "You might be right about that," and mean it. Not as a defeat, but as an act of generosity. Epictetus taught that some things are within our control and some things are not, and that wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Whether you win an argument about something trivial is rarely within your control in any meaningful sense, because winning often costs you the relationship's warmth. But your response, your willingness to release the need for victory, that is entirely yours to choose. Consider a husband and wife, both in their 60s, who have been together for decades. The ones who are still genuinely fond of each other, still enjoy each other's company, are usually not the ones who never disagree. They are the ones who learned, somewhere along the way, that being right matters far less than being kind. That habit alone, releasing the grip on being correct, makes a person feel safer to be around. And feeling safe is one of the most attractive things a human being can offer another. Habit number 4 is maintaining good posture, not for vanity, but because of what it represents internally. When you stand or sit with your spine straight, shoulders relaxed but not slouched, head level, you are physically embodying composure. And composure, more than any other single trait, signals inner stability. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. In the same way, your body often becomes shaped by your inner state, but it also works in reverse. How you hold your body influences how you feel and how others perceive you. Think of an older man who walks into a room slightly hunched, eyes down, shoulders curled inward, as if apologizing for taking up space. Now think of another man, same age, who walks in upright, unhurried, taking his time to find a seat. Neither one has said a word, yet you already have a different impression of each. One seems burdened, the other seems grounded. People are drawn toward groundedness, especially as they get older themselves and crave stability in their own lives. Habit number 5 is speaking less about yourself and asking more about others. This sounds simple, almost too simple to matter, but think honestly about most conversations you've had recently. How many of them were genuinely balanced? How many times did you walk away from a conversation feeling like the other person was truly curious about your life, your thoughts, your experiences? Now think about how rare that feels, and how much you remember the people who made you feel that way. Seneca often spoke about the difference between appearing wise and actually living wisely. He said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and part of that suffering comes from our constant inward focus, our endless internal monologue about ourselves. When you turn that focus outward, when you ask someone about their week, their family, their thoughts on something, you are not just being polite. You are offering them a rare gift, the experience of being truly seen. Picture two people at a community event. One spends the conversation talking about their recent trip, their grandchildren, their opinions on the news. The other asks questions, listens, follows up with genuine curiosity. Which one do people walk away thinking about more fondly? Which one do they hope to talk to again? Curiosity about others is quietly magnetic because it is so uncommon. Habit number 6 is becoming comfortable with silence. Many people, especially those who grew up in households where silence meant something was wrong, feel an urge to fill every quiet moment with words. But silence, used well, can be one of the most powerful tools in human connection. Marcus Aurelius wrote that very little is needed to make a happy life, that it is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Part of that way of thinking involves not needing constant external stimulation or noise to feel comfortable. When you can sit with someone in silence, whether during a meal, a car ride, or simply after a meaningful conversation, without feeling the need to fix it, you are demonstrating a kind of inner peace that others find restful to be near. Think of an elderly couple sitting on a porch in the evening, not talking, just present together, watching the sky change color. There is nothing missing from that moment. It is complete. That same quality, the ability to be at peace without constant conversation, is something people sense in you, even in casual settings, and it puts them at ease. Habit number 7 is following through on small promises. Not grand gestures, not dramatic commitments, but the tiny things. Saying you'll call someone back and actually doing it. Saying you'll be somewhere at a certain time and arriving on time. Saying you'll think about something and actually thinking about it. Epictetus taught that character is revealed not in big moments, but in how we handle the countless small choices of everyday life. Reliability, in this sense, becomes a quiet form of integrity, and integrity, more than charm or wit, is what makes people trust you, and trust is the foundation beneath all genuine attraction. Think about someone you know who simply does what they say they will do every time, without fanfare. You probably don't think of them as exciting, but you probably think of them as someone you'd want in your life for a long time. That kind of dependability becomes more valuable with age, not less. Habit number 8 is dressing with intention, not for trends, but for self-respect. This doesn't mean spending money on expensive clothes or chasing youthful styles that no longer fit who you are. It means taking a few extra minutes each morning to choose clothes that are clean, that fit well, that you feel comfortable in. It means caring for your appearance, not to impress others, but because you respect yourself enough to present yourself with care. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be, and instead simply be one. In the same way, the question isn't whether your clothes are fashionable. The question is whether the way you present yourself reflects the respect you have for your own life and your own time. Think of someone, maybe a neighbor or a relative, who always looks put together, not flashy, but neat. Pressed shirt, clean shoes, hair combed, even on an ordinary day running errands. There's something quietly reassuring about that. It suggests a person who takes their own existence seriously, who hasn't given up on themselves. People are drawn to that energy because it suggests stability and self-respect, two things that become more precious as we get older. Habit number 9 is expressing genuine gratitude out loud, regularly. Not generic thank yous said out of habit, but specific moments where you tell someone exactly what you appreciated and why. Thank you for listening to me earlier. It meant a lot. Thank you for remembering that detail about my week. Thank you for being patient with me today. Seneca wrote extensively about gratitude, saying that no one is more unhappy than the person who never reflects on what they already possess. Gratitude shifts your internal focus from scarcity to abundance, and people can feel that shift in you. When you express specific gratitude towards someone, you are also telling them they matter, that their actions had an effect on you. That makes people feel valued, and people are drawn toward those who make them feel valued. Think of an older friend who, instead of a generic thanks, says something like, "I really appreciated that you called me back so quickly. It made my day easier." That small specificity changes everything. It shows attention, it shows care, and it makes the other person want to continue being kind to you because their kindness was seen and acknowledged. Habit number 10, and perhaps the most important one, is accepting yourself as you are right now, without waiting for some future version of yourself to arrive before you start living fully. So many people, especially as they age, hold back. They think, once I lose weight, once I retire, once things settle down, then I'll really start engaging with life, with people, with new experiences. But Epictetus reminds us that we don't get to choose most of what happens to us, only how we respond to it. Waiting for some perfect future moment to start being present is itself a form of self-rejection, and people can sense that hesitation, that holding back, even if they can't name it. Think of someone who, despite grey hair, despite a body that has changed over decades, despite not looking the way they did at 30, simply shows up fully, laughs freely, engages warmly, doesn't apologize for existing. That person is magnetic, not despite their age, but because of how they inhabit it. All 10 of these habits share something in common. None of them require youth. None of them require money. None of them require changing who you fundamentally are. They simply require you to become more present, more grounded, more genuinely yourself. And here is something worth sitting with. Attraction, in the deepest sense, was never really about turning heads. It was about making people feel something when they're near you. Calm, seen, respected, at ease. Those feelings don't fade with age. If anything, they become rarer, and rarer things become more valuable. So here is your practice for today. Choose just one of these 10 habits, the one that felt most relevant to you as you listened, not the one that seems easiest, but the one that struck something in you. And practice it once today, in one real interaction. Slow down your speech with one person. Hold eye contact a little longer with someone you love. Ask one genuine question and actually listen to the answer. You don't need to become a different person. You only need to become more fully the person you already are, without the noise, without the performance, without the waiting. Because the truth is, you were never unattractive. You simply forgot, somewhere along the way, what attraction actually means. Take a moment to think about how you can apply what we talked about today to your life right now. If you value this approach and want to build a more resilient mind with us, subscribe and join the community. I'll see you in the next video.